I was born in South Dakota. Most of our family was located in and around the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation. I had a horse there, a completely white horse named Snowball. One day my parents explained to me that we would be migrating to Denver. There were more job opportunities there and we'd be able to move into a house. I wasn't going to miss all the harsh winters, but a great part of me didn't want to leave. Our ancestors still danced there in spirit. All the sacred lands, sun dances, and powwows would be replaced with great concrete snakes, 7-Elevens, and fast food restaurants. My parents found a way to make it sound exciting, but in my dream time, phantom limbs would still reach out to stroke an ivory mane for many years afterward. We eventually settled on a home on the outskirts of downtown Denver. My father worked nights, so my mother and I were often home alone. It was a scary place and a scary neighborhood. A previous tenant had hung herself in the closet of the room which became my bedroom. Some nights, you could still hear her crying from that dark closet. And one night, a heavy cellar door slammed shut on me by itself, catching my finger and requiring stitches. It branded me, physically and symbolically, generating an insatiable curiosity on the workings of the spirit world. As an Oglala Sioux, I was exposed to this concept from a very early age. We coexisted with the spirit in a harmonious way, although we did have several experiences with ghosts and hauntings. After my injury, we moved. We found an apartment further north. It was located next to a loud, busy highway. Across the highway was the North Star Drive-In. Every Christmas, they turned on the star they had on top of this long pole. Every Christmas, my father used to tell us it was the Star of Bethlehem. My little sister and I believed him. My mother did maintenance for the complex, so she had access to the roof. My father used to go up there on Christmas Eve and shake some Christmas bells. My mother would tell us to sit by the window, telling us to listen for Santa's sleigh bells overhead. It was still several years after those magic Christmases that I discovered this had been my dad. We didn't have much, but what we had was made magical. And we didn't have the land we had in South Dakota, so my imagination would have to compensate. Our TV was always on. I remember a lot of Star Trek, and then later another series starring Leonard Nimoy called In Search Of. It was devoted to mysterious phenomena, ghosts, UFOs and ET, the Loch Ness Monster, Bigfoot. I was hooked. At the end of every episode, with that eerie electronic closing theme playing, with images of Stonehenge, Loch Ness, and Amelia Earhart smiling back from the unknown, I would ask my father if these things were real. His reply was always the same. Some people think so. He never debunked any of it, never sanitized it, never made it logical or safe. It remained scary and dangerous and fantastically exciting. That those kinds of things were happening in our world. He didn't tell me it was just swamp gas, a hoax, or the planet Venus. He allowed my imagination and my own reasoning to breathe. As such, I was raised to believe that anything was possible. And anyway, as Native Americans, we experienced a much different reality with our tribe recognizing and honoring spirit, which was, in spite of what we were told was or was not possible, it was spirit which had the governing authority, and miracles happened daily. During this period, my family would be praying for one after I was involved in a terrible accident. One afternoon, on my way home from elementary school, I was crossing the street. At that time, I was a latchkey kid. My parents were workhorses who started early and left work late, so I had my own keys to the apartment. I was always the last to leave and the first one to arrive home. That day, I was in a hurry home to watch Tom and Jerry. In class, we had made paper finger puppets. I was wearing them on every finger. I remember stepping out to cross the street after making sure it was clear, but I couldn't have anticipated the car which roared around the corner, hit me, then roared off, leaving me bleeding and unconscious in the middle of the street. I woke up on someone's lawn, fighting off 3 policemen in my attempt to get home. I was in excruciating pain, but I needed to get home. My mother was very strict, and I was always told to come straight home after school. Too dizzy to continue fighting, I lied back on the lawn, hearing an ambulance in the distance, watching with some degree of surrealism as all my finger puppets, crushed and covered with blood, blew away in the wind. All things considered, I was lucky, though I did have a big bloody goose egg on my forehead. I was kept out of school for a while, bedridden, and it was during this time that I started to receive visits from an unknown person late at night. What happened was, Sometime during the night, long after I went to sleep, the hallway light would click on, and I'd watch as the dark silhouette of a man would approach my bed. He would sit next to me and ask me questions about my life. How old was I? Who were my friends? What was my favorite movie? After putting the creep factor aside, I actually began to enjoy his nocturnal visits, even though he often asked me the same things over and over. After a few weeks, though, he simply stopped coming, and I never told anyone about him. It seemed a private encounter. I didn't know what he was or what he wanted anyway, beyond perhaps my company, but he only came to me. Decades later, I was talking to my father about that hit and run. I decided to finally tell him about my secret visitor. He listened and smiled, and then he told me he knew who it was. I thought maybe he was visited by the same ghost or interdimensional being too, but he said that the mysterious visitor was him. Because there was a great concern that my long and short-term memory might be affected by my severe concussion, my father was instructed by the doctors to wake me up in the middle of the night, again and again, to ask me a series of questions. My father left this plane on Day of the Dead in 2016. He was sick for a year with cancer before he passed, but we had time and we visited often. He gave me a box of slides, photos I had never seen from his experiences as a soldier in Vietnam. I was able to see him young, to see this whole other part of his history. It was like looking at a new planet. And when it came to the point where he could no longer speak, he would just salute me. After he died, he came to me in my dream time. That hallway light clicked on, but this time I knew it was his silhouette. He asked me those same questions, but this time, instead of going back to sleep, I followed him out of the room. He stood in front of the door to his bedroom, which was the doorway to the spirit world. I kept trying to peek past him to see what it was like, but he would not let me see. Eventually, I faked a right and finally got a peek. It was like Neverland, and I noticed the constellations were different. It was like an old episode of Star Trek, or In Search of. Eventually, I would be invited on several television shows in the paranormal vein, just like the ones I used to watch with my dad. Every October, he'd look forward to the DVD I'd make him of my latest exploits in the paranormal field. He still makes occasional visits to my dream lodge, and I am so grateful he allowed my mind and my imagination to roam. And I'm still that little boy, sitting up in the bed in the dark, still waiting for the hallway light to click on, for the great unknown to sit by my bed and keep me company in the middle of the night. I'm Christopher Allen Brewer, and I thank you for watching.
My name is Christopher Allen Brewer. I've appeared on several supernatural programs, including Season 2 of Paranormal 911, airing every Saturday night on Travel Channel. You can follow me on Facebook through the Future Ghost page and my website, thespiritchasers.com. Thank you for watching.